As you're told, unless you are born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Even though the kingdom of heaven is within you. The kingdom of God is within you. And God is in his kingdom. Although he is in his kingdom and that kingdom is in you, you can't enter it unless you turn from this world of materiality, believing it is the cause, believing it is the reality, to live in your own wonderful human imagination. When you do, you'll find yourself on the very verge of being reborn. So you're warned, do not ask me when. I will tell you, not even the Son knows. Only the Father. But I'll give you the symptoms of it when you can trust your own wonderful human imagination. That will be the symptom. Can I stand here tonight and take any request? Doesn't cost me anything. And it's a joy if it's within what I call the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Ask nothing of me that you would not ask for yourself. Do not ask me to hear any news in this world that you would not really want done to you. Because first of all, I could not do it. I use the golden rule. Then, if it comes within the framework of the golden rule, it's so easy. What would the feeling be like if it were true? That you are what you want to be. That they are what they want to be. That they have what they want to be. Don't ask me how it's going to happen. I do not know. The depth of your own being has ways and means that you, the conscious surface being, know not of. It knows exactly how to do it. So don't ask how it's going to be done. So when doubt sets in, as he said in his letter to me, when the doubt set in, that doubt materialized in the form of a person who also wanted that home and had more money and bought it and left me out in the cold. I can tell from the uprising of moods within me that I'm going to meet certain people. And I do. The mood, you can suppress the mood. As Churchill said, the moods determine the fortunes of people rather than the fortunes determine the mood. Don't ignore that great man. He said that the mood actually determines the fortunes. So I would catch a mood. Well, then catch the mood of your wish fulfilled. What would the feeling be like if it were true? Imagine the wish fulfilled. What would it be like? How would I feel if it were true? In spite of all things round about you that deny it, you walk as though it were true. And in a way that you do not know, and you need not know, it will externalize itself within your will, and you will actually receive it. Listen to these words. With God, all things are possible. That you will read in the 19th chapter of the book of Matthew. Now we'll go to the 9th chapter of the book of Mark. All things are possible to him who believes. He equates God with the believer in man. All things are possible to him who believes. That's Mark. Matthew, with God, all things are possible. So he equates the believer in man with God. Well, the believer in me is my own wonderful human imagination. What other thing in man but is reality, which is imagination that believes? Is the dreamer in man. I go to bed at night and I dream. The dreamer and the waking I are one and the same being. Can I believe, or am I going to allow certain doubts? Now, he is a psychologist, trained to talk people out of their mental problems. Put them on the couch, put them on the chair, and talk them out of it and spend years, when he could easily, as he confessed, have imagined them whole and perfect and happy. But he said, I believe that I was, through my training, compelled to spend these awkward years as anyone who works at a job spends his time in an awkward manner. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, then it's simply a job and you're doing something that is to you awkward, if you like it. Like my brother Victor, who has made a fortune. The very smell of the ship, the very smell of the boat, the smell of his store, he loves it. He goes there in the morning and the odor of his store, I can't stand it. He goes into the grocery store and everything about it. He just loves the odor, all the combinations of the odors of the grocery store. He goes into his department store, all the things of the department store. That's the odor. It affects him. He loves it. Goes to a hotel, and the restaurant naturally is all in service. That affects him, and he loves it. He so loves it. He's in the mood of success. So fall in love with something that really excites you, and feel that you are already what you want to be. And I tell you from my own experience and from this man's experience that it will work. Now, here is a man who heard me years ago. He came home one day, and I thought, now here's a man teaching people how to live correctly. And I had 2 books. They're completely out of print. You can't buy them. But I thought, if I could give them to someone doing this kind of work, who is serious, he's a trained psychologist, I'll give them to him. So I gave him these books. I don't think he's read them. First of all, they're named after the mountains of Switzerland, Zermatt and Oberland. But it's all imagination. The man who wrote it, I presume he's gone now. He was 94 when I last heard from him. But I gave him these books. They were new and completely out of print. You can't get the books. You might find them in some second-hand, but they were never popular books because they were very voluminous books. But he wrote them in the form of a dialogue like a Plato. He introduced 5 characters, and each one was a scientist, one was a philosopher, one was a mystic, one was something else, and they all discussed. And he had the central one who was the mystic, explaining the phenomena and the cause of the phenomena of life. And so he wrote these volumes. And I gave them to him. I asked him the other night, because he's here for the second time in years. And he mentioned the way he told me about them. I don't really think he really read them with understanding or really read them, because it's told like a Plato would tell a story, introducing characters. Because the one person is speaking as the scientist, as the mystic, as the philosopher, as the atheist. He had them all present, only 5 characters. But the books are completely on imagination. And it's called the Zermatt Dialogues and the Oberland Dialogues. And I went down to the bookstore in Long Beach called Acres of Books looking for them. And old Mr. Smith, he's gone now. He was then in his 80s. And I was looking all over the philosophical department and the other departments. Oh, he said, you wouldn't find them there. You'll find them under Switzerland, the mountains. He didn't know the content of the book. Go over to the place and look under Switzerland. And there they were. So I found my 2 books. And I parted with him and I gave them to him in the hope that, because he is a psychologist, a trained one, that these will show him that causation is all imagination. That imagining creates reality. What am I imagining? So they came to him, the embodiment of imagination. And they said, but you haven't eaten. And they were concerned because he'd been left alone and he had not eaten. And he said, I have food you know not of. And the food is, what are you feeding your imagination morning, noon, and night? You read the morning paper and you react. And you don't know one character there, any of them, and you react even before you get to the end of the page, based upon some biased reporter. But you react. That's what you fed the Lord. For the Lord is your own wonderful human imagination. That's God, and there is no other God. That is the Jesus of Scripture. That's the Jehovah of the Old Testament. and he is housed in you. That's why you are immortal. So you can drop right now. May I tell you, it makes no difference to your immortality. Chop off your head, burn you, and turn it into dust. You are an immortal being. You cannot cease to be, because God became as you are, that you may be as he is. And so you're going through these with these strange, peculiar diets, and we simply produce what we feed upon. You can learn a lesson from the animal world. When we were children, we had ducks, chickens, all kinds of things that you have on a farm. And we were a large family. There were 10 children, 9 boys and 1 girl. And we had a father, mother, and grandmother, all living in our home. And Mother would say to us, take, say, 2 or 3 ducks and put them away, because I want them in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a duck dinner. So you take the 3 ducks and you put them away. Well, she meant that you will change their diet, because when I was a boy, fish was plentiful and cheap. You could bring in all kinds of fish. We had no refrigeration, so if it wasn't sold in the evening, early evening, it rotted. So you simply either used it for strange bait the next day, or you fed the animals, that is, the ducks. So we would take the fish while we kept them alive and fed on ducks, on fish. And they got fat and they were altogether healthy. But you couldn't eat that bird until you took it and isolated it and put it in a cage by itself and stuffed it with meal, corn, sour milk, anything of that nature. And at the end of 10 days, that bird, having been fed only on, say, milk or corn or anything you had of that nature, the whole system changed. And so when you cooked it, it was like a milk-fed bird. If you didn't do it, you couldn't eat it. It's all fish. And I would know, I can see it now in my mind's eye. When Mother said, Neville, get a few ducks and put them away, and I'm playing cricket and playing soccer, I forgot it. When I remembered, it was only about 5 days before. So I took the ducks and put them away, but 5 days was not enough to purge it completely of the fish. Well, you could smell that thing all over the neighborhood. On Sunday afternoon, we were going to have ducks. And we knew we couldn't have ducks because you couldn't eat it. You look at a duck and you're eating fish. So it repulsed everyone. Of course, we got a good spanking for it because we didn't do what Mother commanded us to do at the time that she told us to do it. Well, that is just like everything else in this world. You feed, as he said, I have food you know not of. You feed for a few days, a couple of weeks, on a changed mental diet. In this case, in 24 hours, when she took the diet that he gave her, I am perfectly normal. The child went into a deep, deep sleep from which she could not be awakened without a struggle. And then the clinic said, well, she's not only bright, but she's healthy. She's completely right. She was simply the outpictured statement that that girl lived with when she said, I am abnormal in many ways. You take a new diet tonight, and just like the duck, and it may take you a day, it may take you a week, it may take you 2 weeks. But if you actually persist in the changed diet, you will outpicture that diet, that change of diet, and your whole vast world will change. We are the only beings to whom he gave speech. He actually became man. And this inner speech is a marvelous gift, and you can't stop it. You're doing it morning, noon, and night. You go to bed talking to yourself. You wake in the morning talking to yourself. And whether there's someone present or not, you're still talking to yourself. You walk the streets. Some are obvious when they do it, but most of us are not that obvious, but we're doing it anyway. We're carrying on little mental conversations with ourselves. But what are we carrying on? Arguments? Or are we boldly affirming and asserting that I am, and then name what I want to be? In her case, he gave her what she should say. And she argued with him that she couldn't say it because I do not feel that yet. Don't wait to feel it, he said to her. Do it now. I am perfectly normal, because if you say I am not abnormal, That's not a creative thing towards your goal. In fact, it may be destructive. You want something positive, not something negative. I am not abnormal. I am perfectly normal. Then the child, the outpictured self. So everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. Blame no one. Don't even blame yourself. Just change the diet. They only reflect what you have been doing and maybe still doing. And when you see it, you change the diet. And the diet is simply words, all within you. So you assume that you are now the man, the woman that you want to be. Walk in that assumption as though it were true. Live in it just as though it is true. And then, who knows, that diet may not take more than 24 hours. I'm quite sure it would not take more than a few weeks to project itself in a way that you do not